All right, we're recording on Zoom, and it looks like we are streaming into my YouTube channel. Let me go going on Facebook here live.
Morning, Coach Jeff.
Hey, Charlie, what's happening? Let's go
Everything.
at get a clue in 52. Tip number 14. Wow. Overall. All right. There we go. Let's start going live. Let's make sure that's doing its thing. And we'll turn that around. And here we go. All right. So, hello out there on Facebook, Zoom, and on YouTube. Welcome to another installment of Get a Clue in 52. Every Sunday night, we're coming on live to read one tip from the book, 52 tips. We got a whole year's worth, 5 categories. And the first category that we covered this year was communication, and now we're into category number 2, which is marketing. We've got 12 tips in marketing, and then we're going to move on after marketing, get into networking, sales, and then accountability to finish out the year. So we've got a lot of things to cover the remainder of the year, but wow, this is tip number 14 overall, tip number 4 in marketing. So last week when we got to tip number 13, that's 25%. We're done with Q1. We're 25% through with 2021. Do you guys remember how we were all dying for 2021? We couldn't wait for 2020 to be over. Well, don't blink, because 2021 is about to be over. And let me say hello. Oh, hey, Preston and Jane. And thanks for anybody else that's watching on the live on the Facebook side. With me live all the way from South Africa is Charlie on the Zoom side. And if you're watching on the YouTube channel, watch Get a Clue. Thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to read one of the dedications, because there are many in the dedications. Then I'll read tonight's tip, and then we'll pivot into group conversation and see who else wants to join live. If you want to join live on Zoom, it's very easy. tinyurl.com/get a clue. It'll bring you right into the Zoom, and then you can interact live after I read this week's tip. Before I read this week's tip, I want to continue from the dedication section. I've got a lot of dedications in the book, so each week I read one until I've read them all for the year, and then we just move on with the tips. But today it's to my brother. Wow, yeah, to my brother Dave. Or did I do that last week? Charlie, do you remember? Were you here last week? No, I did that last week to my brother Dave, now that I remember. So tonight it's to Dr. T-Bone. Oh, doctor, what a huge burden it can be to mean so much to another human being. Thanks for willingly sharing that burden with me. #Cluebone. That's when Clueback and T-Bone come together. It's my best friend forever. So tonight, T-Bone is mentioned in the dedications. Now let's go ahead and get into it. Now, like I said before, we're in section 2, which is marketing. We've got 12 tips in marketing, but tonight is the 4th tip in that section. The marketing section starts on page 41. And the first thing that we said in marketing, tip number 1 in this section, was to know all the things you need to know, or like know what you need to know, then know it. So the idea is I got to set up 11 things that I think a good marketer will know or want to know or should endeavor to know. And the whole point here is maybe not all 11 things, but of the 11, find the 1 or 2 that you know make the greatest difference, and make a plan to get better at that, and then go back and see what are the next things that you want to improve on. It's hard to improve 11 things at once, but it's really easy to improve one thing at a time. So know what you need to know, then know it. And that set me up. It was almost like a survey or a preview of the next 11 tips in the section. So tip number 2 was know your ideal customers. We broke that down into demographics and psychographics. What do our customers look like? But more importantly, what do they think like? What are they afraid of? What are they excited about? Where do they go? How do they get there? What do they pass along the way? The more we know about our customers, the easier it's going to be to put marketing messages in front of them. It sounds simple, and these tips are made to be simple. Of course, you could go into depth on any of these tips, but the part of this isn't to be depthful. It's to get 52 tips, get everybody thinking about what they need to think about. Anyway, I digress. That takes us to last week was know the competition. Well, no. Was it 2 weeks ago? I'm getting confused. No, yeah, last week, know the competition. So we had Coach Joey join us 2 weeks ago when it was know the customers. And I remember last year when we did the first section of Get a Clue in 52, when we went over this last year, because I did the same thing every Sunday night. I read a tip from the book. I'm just changing the order around. And I'm, instead of live streaming into the YouTube group, I'm live streaming into instead of live streaming into Facebook, I'm live streaming into YouTube. But the point here is that Marissa Friedman deserves mention. Last year, she was my guest on that tip, know your competition. Last week, I just read it quickly and we moved on. But last year, Marissa was a special guest, and she came on and she showed us all this technology that we could use to find out what things are our competition plugging into their websites, what kinds of ads are our competition putting on Facebook and other social media. There's all kinds of widgets and gadgets out there that will really help us understand what our competition is doing from a marketing perspective. And that doesn't mean that we have to do everything our competition is doing, but we are looking for competitive advantage in all that we do. We want to know why people will buy from us instead of our competition. So are there things that we need to do better than everybody else that does them? Or there are things that we need to do that nobody else does, and that creates competitive advantage for us. So tip number 2 in this section is know your customers. Tip number 3 is know your competition. That's what we read last week. We were brief about it last week, but last year when we did this, we had one of the brightest marketing minds I've ever met, Marissa Friedman, on board. So Marissa, if you're out there listening, props to you. And thanks for coming on board last year. And let me know if you ever want to come on board again this year. We got a lot more tips in marketing. All right, so that brings us to tonight, tip number 4. And what tip number 4 is about, I'll go ahead and read word for word. It's know the conditions. Know the conditions. So here we go, page 46, word for word. Tip number 4. Wherever there is marketing, there are market conditions that are critical to stay aware of and prepared for. In the communication literature, this is referred to as context. The context of any or all communication will determine what is expected, appropriate, and ultimately effective. That's in italics here in the book, so I'm going to read it again. The context of any/all communication will determine what is expected, appropriate, and ultimately effective. Charlie, remind me to come back to that when I'm done reading word for word. All right, I continue. Knowing the context where marketing will take place serves the same purpose as helping marketers know what will be expected, appropriate, and ultimately effective. Keep in mind that marketers are often most effective by creatively doing what is not expected or what is considered by some to be inappropriate. These calculated decisions are always made with an awareness of external factors in the market. Asking or imagining how external forces such as politics, economics, technology, international affairs, environment, or education will affect the mindset of prospects can be a difference maker in your marketing. I believe great marketers will have their finger on the pulse of these external factors to understand how best to deliver the marketing message given the context. I encourage you to take time to #describe the market. ... to use real words to describe the market conditions that currently exist. Describe as much as you can about where your prospect is to be marketed to you. Did I read that right? There's a parenthesis. Let me start again. Describe as much as you can about where your prospect is to be marketed to you, parentheses, market conditions, physical surroundings, the situation, etc., and parentheses. And you will have much more to work with when creating new and memorable ways to deliver your message. And it's interesting, I got this infographic in there that says, worrying is a waste of our imagination. And so we know, coming out of the word for word read into the dialogue or the group discussion that we may have around this, that the market conditions have been dominated by COVID for over a year now. And we just got past this, what many people were seeing is the 1-year anniversary of the 2-week shutdown, right? And we are turning corners. We are making progress. We have learned a lot, but still, when we're exercising this tip 10 years from now, COVID's not going to be the first thing on our mind, but right now it is. And so why waste a good pandemic, right? Just because there's a pandemic doesn't mean we stop marketing, doesn't mean we stop knowing about our customer, our competition. In addition to the pandemic, what else about market conditions? People are Zooming, people are at home more often, on and on. When we do the brainstorm and when we exercise the tip, we should come up with data points, keywords, phrases, ideas that we wouldn't have had if we didn't do that exercise. And so we're going to get better messages. We're going to deliver them at better times, etc. when we pay attention And by the way, these tips all build on themselves, or they build on each other. So if we know the customer, we know the competition, we know the conditions. Those are the 3 C's of market research. When I'm researching the market, I want to know who my customer is. I want to know who my competition is. And then I want to know the conditions that we're marketing within. If with knowledge of those 3 things, I'm going to come up with better messages. That's just all there is to it. If I ignore those 3 things and try to spray and pray, my marketing might not be as effective. So it doesn't have to be any more rocket science than that. Know the 3 C's: customer, competition, and what we talked about tonight, market conditions. Chances are you'll come up with better marketing messages. So let me go ahead, and as I get ready to transition here, Charlie, I want to thank you so much for being with me all the way from South Africa. It's Monday morning for you. You're here so consistently. It really, and if you weren't tonight, right, I would have done this all by myself. I still haven't had to do any of these by myself. There's still always at least one person on board with me. So let me go ahead and get my audio settings ready to introduce you to the conversation, Charlie, and we'll answer any questions you've got or entertain any offerings that you want to contribute. So give me just a second to get this going. Testing 1, 2. Charlie, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Coach.
All right, fantastic, Charlie. So what do you have to say about, first of all, marketing, either the customer? You can talk about any of the tips, because I know that because of power in South Africa, you weren't here with us last week. So if you want to adjust anything that we talked about last week or anything tonight, but for now, I just want to thank you for coming on board. Thank you for those out there on the Facebook side. Like I said, I saw Jane, I saw Preston. Anybody else that has scrolled by that I haven't seen, forgive me. Thanks for coming on board. And those of you that are watching on the YouTube channel, watch Get a Clue, all one word. Thanks for joining me on another installment of Get a Clue in 52. Charlie, what do you got for us tonight?
Good morning again, Coach Jeff, or evening to you, and a happy Easter to everyone who celebrates Easter.
That's right. That's
right. Coach Jeff, this thing about demographics and psychographics, could you expand a little bit on that for me, please?
Yeah. Very simple. Like demographics, like demo, people, right? Like democracy is rule. It's crusty by demo, right? Rule by the people. So demographics are pictures that are painted by people. It's very simply way to put it is what I can observe. If I'm looking at somebody, it's what I can see. So I can see their height, I can see their shape, I can see their skin color, I can see their gender, right? I can see if they're abled or disabled physically. I can see if they're young or old. Generally speaking, I mean, the further, it's funny, the older I get, the younger everybody else looks. And with, I joke because of, there's, with all of the modification technology that has emerged over the years, from tattooing to makeup, to Botox, to implantation, to nips, to tucks, to bangs and bruises and smoke and mirrors. I mean, it's interesting that people can manipulate their appearance, but we see that, when we see somebody that's into plastic surgery, we can observe that, right? Demographics. Do you follow? Things that I can see, a picture, right? Okay, now sometimes though that you got to be careful about that, because you can't judge a book by its cover, right? I love the stories that I would read in sales literature about the person that rolls up with the best clothes, the person that rolls up with an expensive car, they've got jewelry on, but they're really broke, and really they're only shopping for the new car to like impress somebody, or their refrigerator is empty at home. Let's put it that way. Versus the person that shows up with a hat and sweats and 2 socks that aren't matched. Do you know what I mean? And you know what I'm saying? And that person's got $1 gazillion behind them, and they're not dressing to impress anybody because they already have all the money in the world. So don't make the mistake as a salesperson of saying, oh, that person's not dressed nice, they don't have money, I'm not going to pay attention to them. So there's exceptions like that I like to make, point out. Right? We don't always know what's going on with somebody just by looking at them. But generally speaking, I can tell if you're if you're the age of a college student or a senior citizen. I can tell if you probably, if you have young children living at home with you, or if you're a bachelor. Generally speaking, there's a lot of information that we can pick up about people, marketing information that we can pick up just by looking at them, demographics. And sometimes
how does that tie in?
Well, hang on.
The first impressions.
Difference between that and psychographics is I don't necessarily know how people feel about issues by looking at them. Maybe if they're wearing a certain shirt or waving a certain sign. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But we have to do a different level of investigation to get into psychographics, which is what market research, surveys. So if you've ever been asked to fill out a survey, right? And so you get, what's your name, or maybe it's anonymous, what's your gender? Are you 18 to 34? Are you 35 to 49? Are you 50 to 64? What's your annual household income? Is it 10 to 20 grand, or 20 to 30 grand, or 50 to 100 grand, or whatever it is in Rand in South Africa, whatever the conversions are. So you get some of that basic demographic information entered on the survey, but then when they want to get psychographic information, it's like, how do you feel about?
Okay.
Right? So just looking at somebody, I may not know if they're a Republican or a Democrat. Just looking at somebody, I may not know if they care, if their number one charity that they would contribute is to, animal safety, or children with birth defects, or, maybe their favorite cause is environmental stuff, or, I can't look at somebody and know if they volunteer in a senior citizens home or not. But once I know that they do, boy, I have a different marketing message for them. So demographics are very simple, observable data, easy to understand data, where psychographics, we have to dig deeper and get into more survey, interview. We have to find that information out somehow in a different way. So does that help you understand the difference between those two?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, the demographic would be who they are, and the psychographic is what they are or what they believe in. Would that be?
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. Yeah, I mean, we're splitting hairs now, because there's some people out there who will say, well, what you believe in is who you are, and all of that, right?
Yeah.
But
So there's a mind the gap there.
Yeah, semantics aside, I believe from what you said that you've got it, right? Like I can know many demographics about you just by looking at you.
Yeah.
Right. But just by looking at you, I may not know any of your psychographics, your mentality, mindset, your values, your attitudes, your beliefs.
Yeah.
So one way of looking at it is basically another way, the simplest frame, external, internal.
Okay.
Demographics are about the person's external self, sort of. I mean, that's not purely true either, right? Because external, what does that mean? Like when you talk about age, gender, etc. But you know what I mean? The specific word is escaping, right? It's evasive, right?
Yeah.
But if you went to the dictionary, you said, or Siri, ask Siri, what's the definition of demographic and what's the definition of psychographic? You'd bet you'd get something more academic, but I'm trying to help you with, a common understanding.
Good. So would you put these attributes the same to your competition in measuring them? What is their demographic and psychographic as well? How do they think? How do they do things?
Yeah, well, if I understand your question correctly, right off the bat, when I'm studying competition, I'm not studying competition for demographic and psychographic. When I'm studying competition, I'm looking for what they believe their advantages are.
Okay. So how do they tap into these two?
Yeah, look, my competition and I were both looking at the same customer. Right.
Yeah.
And it stands to reason that we both know something about their demographics and psychographics. But what if I don't? And what if my customer or my competition does? So then if I'm studying so I'm not studying demographics and psychographics of my competition. What I'm studying is how my competition is creating marketing messages for the same customer. And does my competition know something about the demographics of my customer that I don't know? And then, technology and use and pricing and, my competition, do they only sell coaching or do they sell coaching and training? Do they just sell training or are they speaker as well? Can they do consulting projects in addition to training programs, in addition to speaker for hire, in addition to info products, in addition to one-on-one coaching? If they do all of that, they're my competition, right? But there are things that I provide that my competition doesn't. There are ways that I do it that my competition doesn't. But when I'm studying customer, I want demographic, psychographic. When I'm studying competition, I want to know what they believe their advantages are and how they're putting their messages out there to talk to my customer in ways that I may or may not want to replicate or improve upon, right? And then whether I'm studying competition or customer, I definitely want to know the conditions where the marketing will exist.
Okay, getting to that one, you asked me to come back to what is expected, effective, and appropriate.
Yeah, there's a Klubi snack for tonight, man. There it is. Gotcha. Right? That's a Klubi snack. It's in italics for a reason, right? Context will determine what is expected, effective, and appropriate. Now, to be serious with you, the reason I asked you to remind me about that is because I wanted to elaborate and not sure, having not read this tip in a year, right? If I would not remembering if I elaborated actually in the text. And what happened was I did, right? So the idea is the point that I want to make, first of all, please understand, everybody, context determines what is expected, what is appropriate, and ultimately what's effective. Now, what's important to understand about that is that sometimes doing the unexpected or inappropriate is what's most effective. If you think about Super Bowl commercials, there's this twist at the end that, commercials last, 15 years, they're doing these funky things at the end, coming up with unexpected things that happen at the end of a commercial. You're following 28 seconds worth of something, and then 2 seconds it throws you for some twist. And that twist is supposed to be the sticky, memorable part that makes the marketing most effective. In other words, what I'm getting at is sometimes doing what is unexpected and inappropriate is what can ultimately be most effective. Like, I wonder, thinking about Super Bowl, I wonder how many more albums Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson sold as soon as they had their wardrobe malfunction, right? It was inappropriate, but in terms of causing a stir and getting people to read news, articles, and right, it was totally effective on many levels, right?
Okay.
I digress. And some people would say, yeah, it effectively regulated, the Super Bowl committee and what kind of, shows would be put at halftime. So I digress. My point is, like, look at behind me, for example. Look at behind me. I've got shoes from Shaquille O'Neal. And that whole relationship started by me yelling out at the top of my lungs during the national anthem of a basketball game. Totally unexpected. Diehard Patriots might say inappropriate, but it was the most effective thing in the world to get a superstar athlete's attention and create a bond and a relationship that one of these days I'm going to write a book about. But so the Klubi snack is context determines what is expected, appropriate, and ultimately effective. And sometimes doing what is expected and appropriate is completely ineffective. But it's the context that determines that. In other words, they're not tied to each other. Effective and appropriate are not tied. In other words,
effective.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Expected and appropriate are not conditions of effective. You could get effective by being in the face of expected and appropriate. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So somebody is expecting you to be acting in a certain way, but then you just act differently, maybe a little bit more humorous, a little louder, and then maybe say something that some people might not like it, but in the context of where it is at, you then says something that has an effect, that causes that stir, that causes that interest with people wanting to then speak to you and to know more about you and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, check this out, man. I mean, here's another Klubi snack that's emerging in real time. Are you ready?
That's last week's one. We'll take it as last week's one.
Yeah. Well, listen, marketing is gambling. This is what just emerged. I got to write this down somewhere so I remember it. This is another Klubi snack right on the spot. Marketing is gambling. You don't know if you can get a return on investment. And sometimes your return is much greater than what you expected, and sometimes it isn't. I mean, wasn't there? I'd have to look this up. I wish somebody else was online with me right now, but I think Burger King took a huge chance a couple weeks back. I don't know if it was Burger King or like one of the burger joints, and they were doing, their intention behind what they're doing was pure, but the way it came out, a lot of people said it was inappropriate. It was like a sexist type of comment, but they were trying to be catchy, witty, hip. They're trying to like honor women, but the statement or the marketing decision they made alone in isolation was offensive. in context of National Women's Day or whatever, in the context, if everybody knew that it was National Women's Day, then it might have been less offensive. But a lot of people saw that message without understanding the full context. So what a huge risk, what a huge gamble. It created a lot of negative press, right? And I didn't read
obviously
of the article,
but
we've got some people would say there's no such thing as bad press. Any attention is good attention. But
yeah.
I'm here to tell you that marketing is gambling. People always want to say like, well, what's the best way to do this? What's the best way to do that? And you know what, Coach Joey, one of the best marketers I've ever met in my life, what he'd tell you is he says, well, you have to test it. You try it and see if it works. And if it works, you keep doing it. And if not, you tweak it, you tweak it, you tweak it, you tweak it. Remember last year when Marissa was on board with us and she got into Grant Cardone's, Cardone's social media, and she showed us 20 different versions of the same ad.
Same advert,
this ad, he's standing on this side. In this ad, he's standing on that side. In this ad, his arms are up. In this ad, his arms are folded. In this ad, it's red. In this ad, the font is blue. So sophisticated marketing teams with good marketing budgets, good marketing people, they will, for one idea, they'll run it 20 different ways to see what works.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that's important to understand. And there's no necessarily right or wrong about it. Part of gambling is you're not going to get everybody. I've never seen one single marketing message that appealed to 100% of any population. So what I'm getting at with marketing as a gamble is you have to be willing to miss the mark. You have to be willing, I guess, to offend some people. You have to be willing to be criticized. You have to be willing, and it's just marketing. It's like anything, putting yourself out there, period. It's all marketing, right? But if you're afraid of what anybody is going to say, then you'll never put a message out there. Like this is me all my life, like I wonder, what Jane, my sister-in-law, I saw she came on today. I think I've been doing this for a year and like 15 months. It's the first time I've ever seen my sister. I'm like, God, is my wife's family going to think I'm nuts? Are they going to think I'm crazy? What will my wife's family think? I don't care. I love my wife's family. If I think it's great, I'm happy. If they think it sucks, I'm happy. Right. But I got to put it out there because my wife's family isn't my audience necessarily. My audience are people that, right, they need soft skills. They need communication skills. They need motivation. They need accountability. So I don't expect anybody in my wife's family to be watching because they need what I have to offer. Maybe they're cheering me on, supporting me. They want to love their brother-in-law. And I'm so grateful, Gene, if you're still hearing this, thank you for that. But that's not my customer base per se. You follow? Yeah. So you understand what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Speaking to a lot of, especially startups and small businesses, I find that they tend to expect their marketing to work first time. How would you translate that message to them to say it's an exercise? Well, you've got to keep doing it over and over and over again.
Yeah, Charlie, first of all, if they're not paying me, I don't transfer the message. Where does it become my responsibility to correct somebody else's marketing unless they're paying me to do it? Yeah. Or unless I'm the consumer that they're marketing to and I give them feedback, I fill out the comment card, right? So, jurisdiction, right? Mm-hmm. Like what gives me, you know what I mean? As far as I'm concerned, the only right that I have to improve somebody else's marketing, right, is if I'm the target customer, they're marketing to me and I say, no, I'm not going to buy. And they say, hey, thank you for not buying. Will you tell us why so that we can improve in the future? Then if I really if I care about them at all and I want them to improve, I'll take the time to do it. Sometimes they incentivize you. Hey, we'll give you half off your next thing if you go online and right? Usually the incentive is never enough for me for the time, right? Like they'll give me $1 off of my next smoothie if I take 30 minutes to go fill in a survey. Sorry, I make too much per hour to dedicate 30 minutes of my time for $1, right?
Got you.
So what's the incentive? But if somebody says, hey, Jeff, I'm going to give you a $10,000 retainer and we want to apply that towards your feedback on our marketing strategies. Yeah, now I've got, jurisdiction. Now I've got permission and incentive to give them the best feedback I can. And not from the perspective of a user, but from the perspective of a marketing communication professional or a master of communication, or, they're paying me for that degree on my wall. They're saying, hey, you are a master in communication. Can we pay for your expertise and help us make our marketing messages better? Right. So if they want to pay me, then I have jurisdiction. If they want me to buy from them, then I have jurisdiction. But otherwise, why would I ever, you follow? Like, I hope I'm answering you like, Charlie, don't get into the business of improving other people's stuff without being paid to do it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly where I was going to, is to get them to, once they've consulted with me, then I can advise them accordingly from what I'm learning and what we need to do, what sort of steps we need to take.
Yeah, that's, this is
How
it's a different conversation slightly, but when I train coaches, I
yeah,
have a coaches training. I train coaches. So
yeah,
anybody out there, if you want to learn how to coach, if you want to learn how to make money
yeah,
as a coach, build a coaching practice. If you want to learn how to motivate people the way I do, if you want to learn how to hold people accountable the way I do, want to learn how to build a coaching practice that's taking you all over the world the way mine has, the way that gives me the flexible schedule so I get to hang out with my kids and go to every single one of my son's baseball games, on and on and on. If you want that, contact me. Okay. But
me.
the reason I'm bringing it up, the reason that I'm bringing it up is because part of the process of selling coaching is a subtle balance. This is one of the things I teach my students, my learners. When we're giving complimentary coaching, the sample, right? The risk-free trial of coaching, to give the prospect the feeling, the experience of what coaching will be like, we're really just making sure we have to stay on the side of just making sure they know what coaching is like. But what a lot of young coaches want to do, because a coach doesn't want to be a coach unless they're really passionate about helping people. So young coaches are going to want to go scuba diving and peel every layer of the onion and actually solve every prospect's problem in the first session. Yeah. And the first session is not to solve every problem. It's just to let people know how you would inside of a coaching relationship. But if you try to give them coaching and actually coach them in the first session, they'll leave and they'll implement your coaching. They'll never come back and hire you. What we want to do, we structure the first complimentary session and the second complimentary session in order to give the risk-free trial, but without giving them, I've never gone to test drive a car where I got to keep it for 3 months.
Yeah.
Test drive is a test drive. You're just going to get enough to know, do I want to buy? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You're just going to go, you're going to go around the block 3 times. You're going to go around the block 3 times.
Charlie, the car salesperson never comes up and says, hey, do you want to take this for a test drive? How about you plan a 9.5-week road trip around the country to see a baseball game in every major league stadium? And once, 9.5 weeks from now, if you like the car after 15,000 miles in 9.5 weeks, maybe then you'll, no. It doesn't like
Just
that.
Go around the block.
Get the car, go here, go there, turn there, check out that parking spot right there. 3-point turn into that baby and check out the turn radius. Oh, get on the freeway, check out the acceleration. All right, take us back to the shop. So my point is that young coaches that are learning how to coach, they have a tendency to lose. One of the things, I have a structure, a system, a process, right? And a young coach, instead of trusting that process, they want to connect with the person and solve their problems, but that's not going to help them enroll people in coaching.
So what would you say would be the marketing message to a young female who's a professional, but also likes child education? I'm mixing the demographic with the psychographic.
I don't have any idea how to answer your question. Great marketing message for what? For what product, for what service? You're telling me about a customer, but I don't know, what am I selling to that person?
You probably selling a makeup or now let's just keep it some health product.
A household product?
A health product, health.
So what is your question? Your question is, Jeff, you're selling a household product. What's the best marketing message to get to a female? You got to help me out here. A
health product to a professional female, who's young, who actually also subscribes to child education or child health as well.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Where are you
Would
coming
that be,
from? Is
would
this
that,
like a
would
real,
that,
let me ask you a question. Is this a real life situation in your life that you actually really want to? Are you making something up right now just to find?
no, I'm just making something up. And then how would you then do the same product to a housewife who is working at a care home, who subscribes to animal health?
Well, you're answering the question. Like I mean, I'm not sure I understand where the question's coming. Like, what do you really want to get out of this question? Do you want to understand the difference between demographics and psychographics, or do you want to, like, you're making up a scenario, but I don't understand what value you're going to get from me answering this question.
Would that message be the same, or would it be different?
It would
That's
be,
basically
well,
the
it
question.
depends. It depends. It depends. It depends. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, what are all of the features and benefits of my stuff? You're saying I'm selling a household thing. So I have to know what my competitive advantages are of what I'm selling. First and foremost, if I have a household cleaning product, why is my household cleaning product better than the competition? Is it cheaper? Is it more effective? Does it last longer? Is it safer for the environment? Does it do something other than clean? In other words, I have to understand what my stuff does better or different than the competition. That's number one. Okay. Then the second thing that I need to understand, and this is where I think your question is got some chops to it, right? Is then I have to understand what pleasure or pain does my buyer want to get out of or towards. Okay. So the two different scenarios, in one situation, I think you've got the woman who's buying the cleaning products and may have somebody else that's coming into the home on a regular basis doing the actual cleaning. Right? Right. So what I might do is I might actually go after cleaning ladies, figure out who are the cleaning ladies, where do they live, where do they breathe, and when it's time to tell the owner, hey, we ran out of detergent, we ran out of soap, we ran out of whatever, you're the cleaning lady, you're the one that gets to recommend to the women which one to buy. You follow? So the busy working professional, right, that isn't home, isn't a house mom, so doesn't have daytime television advertising to them, right? Who's the most influential person? So when you look at each different type of person that you talk to, you figure who's the most influential person. It's like breakfast cereal. Breakfast cereal companies don't advertise directly to the buyer; they advertise to the kids. So the kids say, "Mommy, Daddy, I want this one. I want that one." Okay, are you with me? So this is what I'm getting at. Like, forget the specific scenarios, but then I'd say, all right, tell me about person A, tell me about person B. So this is what we're talking about. What are the conditions? Now you got a working professional, but in COVID, are they going to work? Or no, now they're going to Zoom. So now I'm thinking, now I want to go and contact Zoom and say, hey, Zoom, what ways are people advertising? How on earth can we get an advertisement, on Zooms? Working professionals are now
So that all ties again into what are the conditions, where are they at, what's happening around.
I'm just trying to stay rooted in my book. My book is Get a Clue in 52, and my tips, know the customer. And so you were playing around with that. There's a difference between that one and this one. Know the competition. We didn't talk about that in your scenario. And then finally, know the conditions, right? But what I needed to know, and we're going to talk about this in future weeks, I need to know my stuff.
I love that
Not
episode.
Just this one's this and this one's that. But hang on. The working professional has different problems than the house mom or the housewife. They have different problems, different issues. So their desire or their decision-making around that household cleaning product is going to come from a different place or in a different context. So you follow?
Yeah.
Right?
Got you.
Sometimes McDonald's, they use a clown for their advertising. Sometimes they use a dad and a child. Like I've seen McDonald's use, athletics, family, clowns, cartoons, right? But when it's Sunday morning cartoons, you're going to see Ronald McDonald, the clown, right? But when it's primetime television, you're going to see a dad right, with a son fighting over the last French fry. And then you'll see another dad and another son at a table over, looking over at them, smiling, and how McDonald's is with us through the generations. And right? So like, what time of day is it? What type of TV program is it? You know, what the working professional? Well, working professional in New York, are they taking the subway? Let me put an advertisement on the subway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, got you.
You know, are they working professional? Do they drive their own car, or do they take taxis? Do they Uber? Do they subway? Are they in a rural area, or are they in a dense, you know, urban area? Are you with me? So
I got you.
The idea is the marketer that thinks they're going to come up with one message, get it out there, and get there is not in a position to win the gamble. There are some marketing messages that are just brilliant. Boom, silver bullet, bam, there you go. I remember "Where's the Beef" with Wendy's when I was growing up. That hit. Everybody loved that. You know, this old woman looking at 3 burgers and like, "Where's the beef?" You know, like that was it. Like it was catchy. It was unexpected. It was cute. It was so Wendy's was just, you know, like for 5, 6, 7 years, Wendy's had that down, right?
Got you.
Every now and then, a marketing message is brilliant and transcends, right? But most of them, it's big time gambling, and most of, you know, many marketing messages fail. And you really, if you try to put it together a great marketing message without paying attention to customer conditions, competition, pain and pleasure, demographic cycle, you know, like if you're not thinking about those things, then you're wasting your time, in my opinion.
Got you.
What else, Charlie? Anything else for tonight, my man?
No, I'm cool.
You're good? You're good?
Yeah, we did a bit of scuba diving there in a few aspects, and
I'm sorry?
it through. I says we did a bit of scuba diving in a few areas.
Yeah,
and it was pretty clear.
You never like missing, and so you wanted to create the space for you to catch up a little bit. And if any of your questions were about last week in addition to this week, but it's about all of it, because every tip builds on each tip, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. So thanks for coming on board, Charlie. Thanks to everybody else.
Always good to be here, Coach Jeff.
Sunday evening. Could have been doing anything else, but for you to come on board and check this out for a couple minutes means the world to me. Hopefully you got something valuable out of this. Another installment of Get a Clue in 52. Last call. You know, Charlie, anything else for you? Comments, questions?
I'm good.
All right.
I'm good. Right. Unless I can get an extra Cluby snack.
What? I'm sorry?
Unless there's an extra Cluby snack.
Well, no, I mean, you got 2 tonight, right? One.
That was one for last week.
I'm kidding. No. Last week was the difference between complaining and explaining.
Okay.
Did we bring that up for you last week? We were thinking about you.
No,
right?
no.
The person complaining wants to hang on to their problem. The person explaining wants to solve it.
Okay.
That's the Cluby snack from last week. Mind the gap. Mind the gap, complaining and explaining.
Oh yeah, I've got that one.
One of my favorite things to be like is just ask people, like, are you complaining or explaining? And they go, what? What's the difference? It's like, well, if you're complaining, you want to hang on to this problem. You've complained to somebody else, and you're going to complain to somebody else after me. But if you're explaining this to me, that's because you want me to help you solve this. Are you complaining or explaining? Okay, that was last week. Tonight is context determines what's appropriate, expected, and effective, even though those 3 aren't mutually exclusive. Right? They're not tied to each other.
100%.
Right? And then the bonus that emerged tonight, the bonus Cluby snack, is marketing is gambling.
Yeah.
If
you don't know if you would get you ROI.
If you can't afford to lose the time and money on experimenting with marketing messages, then don't market. Go get a job where somebody else does the marketing for you. Right? And I don't mean to sound like an asshole about it, but a lot of people like the entrepreneurial lifestyle because they think it's easy, or I won't be micromanaged. I won't have a boss. I won't have to be at work at any time. I'll set my own schedule. I have freedom. I have flexibility. I'll work for myself. I'll make all the decisions. I think it's glamorous. It is not. I mean, it can be if you're good at it, or if you know, but I'm telling you, marketing's gambling, and you better have a tight stomach, and you better be ready to accept some losses and some criticism. Because any marketing message you put out there is going to be less than perfect. That's all there is to it. Some are better than others. Some should never see the light of day. And if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to experience a little bit of all of it. So,
Yep. That's the biggest thing the new entrepreneurs are not getting is, you know, that journey is not all that it seems like. It's a journey. It's all just
because most of them are posturing as a form of marketing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Anyway, I digress. That's a whole conversation for another time. All right, listen, man, I'm going to seal it with a kiss. Coming at you, Charlie. Mwah. All right. Thanks for coming on board tonight. This is Get a Clue in 52, installment number 14 overall. Tip number 4 from the marketing section. Charlie, all the way from South Africa, was with me tonight, as he is most weeks. We didn't see Patty tonight. Normally she's here, and usually we get some others that are chiming in. But for those of you that wanted to stay anonymous and just watch on the Facebook side, thanks for chiming in. Those of you that are catching a replay on one of the other channels, whether it's Watch Get a Clue on YouTube or the Get a Clue Inc. channel, or the actual group itself for the book, Get a Clue in 52, or the Integrity Game, which is new social media that I'm promoting. Wherever you're finding out about Get a Clue in 52, thank you for taking the time to check us out, and let us know if there's anything in particular you want us to discuss on a week-to-week basis. If you have any questions that I can address on air on a week-to-week basis, but otherwise, don't be afraid. Come on board, tinyurl.com/get-a-clue, and you'll join the conversation like Charlie did tonight. Great networking, great live organic things emerge, like tonight's Cluby Snack, Marketing is Gambling, and could pay off, but you got to be ready to accept those losses. Anyway, you're invited to join us every single week. Thank you so much. This is Coach Jeffrey Klubeck saying thanks for another installment of Get a Clue in 52. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Coach Jeff. Good night. Have a good week.
Thanks, Charlie.
Right, Jeff.